Hi everybody, my name is Molly Rockamann. I'm the founding director of EarthDance. We are a nonprofit located here in St. Louis, technically in Ferguson, which is an inner ring suburb of St. Louis. And EarthDance is a nonprofit organization that operates an organic farm school. We also operate a certified organic 14-acre working farm. So you'll see lots of pictures. And I guess I first wanted to just kind of highlight where we are located. So, and really kind of the impetus for even starting EarthDance where we are. So one thing that I often just feel a little bit like, oh, I wish we wouldn't always get put in this bucket of urban, but then when you look at the density around us, you can say that's pretty urban. But I just feel like often we dichotomize a little bit too much between urban and rural, as if it's like you're either in downtown in an inner urban area, or you're all the way out in the boonies in a rural area with, you know, hundreds of acres. So we're really in the suburbs, you know, so I kind of want to just call out that I think there's a place for suburban agriculture. This farm is not, you know, vacant lots that have been reclaimed, the soil being remediated. This was existing farmland where development grew up around it. So, anyways, you'll see a little bit about the history of the farm itself. So I started the organization really initially with the mission to keep that farm in production. I first visited it as a teenager and wondered what was going to happen to that farm when the last generation of the family who established it in the late 1800s, when they passed on, because they didn't have any kids to inherit the farm or keep it going. So I actually, that was the initial mission of it, was to keep this farm in production. And it's also considered to be the oldest organic farm west of the Mississippi, still to be refuted. So if anyone knows of an older one, let me know, because that's not the kind of thing that somebody usually writes about. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I just kind of assumed that it was obvious, but let me point that out. That's a really good question. Really good question. It's this area right here. So 233 is actually just a separate title that has the brick farmhouse that's our office space on it. But this area, pretty much the entire rectangle, with the exception of those 4 houses, of course, is our property now, is the historic Mueller farm. At 14, yeah. Yeah, and a lot of this is actually not really like inhabited. So this is Ferguson, we're in Ferguson, but we're also right on the border of Ferguson and Kinloch. So if anyone's ever heard of Kinloch, and it's also a suburb of North St. Louis County. You can see there is some undeveloped property to the north of us, but that's not part of the farm. It's mostly overgrown woods, and unfortunately we found out that there was some, you know, used as a dumping ground for some stuff. So yeah, good question, thank you. And feel free, actually, if there's questions like that about the slides especially, ask on the way. So also to just point out that, yeah, the other reason for creating EarthDance was to offer a farmer training program. So I was very fortunate to be able to attend this UC Santa Cruz program. I don't know if anyone's heard of it. I'm sure there's folks from the West Coast in the room. The Center for Agroecology and Sustainable Food Systems at UC Santa Cruz. It's now, they just had their 50th anniversary of that program last July. So it's a really long established program, and there was nothing like it in the Midwest. So that was another reason I felt compelled to start EarthDance. So this is not a very great picture, but you can see the millers. Al is with his arm propped up on the tree there. They just sold produce straight off the farm, and were really known in the region for their incredibly nutrient-dense produce farmed using organic principles. And then when I was digging up the history of the farm, I found out that there was a young couple, Andrew and Abigail Ashley, that when Al was no longer physically able to manage the farm himself, they actually rented the farm for one season. And this kind of goes to the question of the land access that was really highlighted in the last thing. They had a single-year lease, you know, and it was a personality conflict, inevitably. You know, they didn't get along with Al. He was pretty set in his ways, and he didn't want them farming his land anymore. So, I mean, it's kind of like, these pictures never tell the full story, right? Everything looks like, oh, isn't that sweet? They're growing zinnias and lots of broccoli. But, you know, unfortunately, and they did a CSA model, which was, you know, they were the forerunner of their time in 1995. But they're actually doing fisheries work and I think living on the East Coast now. But it was really great to talk to them and hear about their experience. So we don't need to focus on that, but I came onto the scene in 2007, and I was reintroduced to the farm. As I mentioned, I had first visited as a teenager, and I was reintroduced by a gentleman who rented an acre of the fields from Caroline. Ever since Al, her husband, passed away, she couldn't keep the farm going. And so there was this gentleman who, you know, saw an ad in the Missouri Organic Association newsletter saying organic farmland for rent, and he had the soil tested, as organic farmers do. And it was some of the best soil the lab had ever seen. So they actually, he took him up on it and started renting year by year. And that's how I was reintroduced to the farm, was actually meeting this gentleman, John Wilkerson, at the Ferguson Farmers Market. And I said, oh my gosh, you're at the old Mueller farm. I always wanted to work there. And so I started volunteering with him and just really developed this vision for something else that could go on at that farm besides a few acres of vegetables here and there, just really being a site for community building and farmer training. So this is our mission statement: to sustainably grow food, farmers, and community one small farm at a time through hands-on education and delicious experiences. We believe that, you know, this whole myth that we need GMOs to feed the world is simply inaccurate. The UN put out a report, maybe some of you are familiar, that the best way to actually feed the planet is with small-scale family farms. We totally acknowledge that, and also think that instead of just thinking about organic farmers feeding the world, maybe we're asking the wrong question. Maybe we need to think about how are we feeding our own communities. So we're trying to direct as much of our produce into our own community as possible. And we also envision communities learning how to care for the land. It's not just about the food produced, it's about the land ethic itself. And then, as you may notice from the name EarthDance, there's an interest in the arts and music and creativity. So in our DNA at EarthDance. So we would like for that to happen more so on farms. So this is just kind of a sprinkling of what we offer. So farm and garden education. As I mentioned, farmer training is something I saw a need for in the Midwest. And so in year one, I was ridiculously bold and was a beginning farmer myself, and decided that, you know, I could run a farmer training program, having a simple, you know, a single year's experience at UC Santa Cruz. And I'm sure I learned more than the apprentices themselves did in that first season, renting an acre of ground and actually farming with alongside 12 people. 12 people signed up in our very first year. 15 actually signed up, 12 did the program. And then it was such a success that the following year we had 30 people, and I was pretty shocked. I'm actually grateful to SARE, gave us some of our very early stage funding. Thank you, Joan Benjamin, to help us really put this into action. And I was, you know, certainly not thinking that I was the best one to teach these classes or really even be managing the fields. I'm more of a facilitator, and you know, just love educating and love bringing out other people's educational expertise as well. So we had a lot of other area farmers actually teaching our classes, and we go on field trips to other farms, as well as in that second year we were able to hire somebody with more farming experience, thankfully, than I had, to actually manage the farm and lead the majority of the field shifts. So we'll get into, I guess, the apprenticeship a little bit more. We also regularly offer tours, workshops. Obviously, we grow a lot of food, have youth programs, and lots of volunteer opportunities. So the apprenticeship program gives folks a big reason people love the program is not only for the fact that they're going away with the hard skills of actually growing food, but they're going away with new relationships that they otherwise never would have formed. There's actually, I'm only seeing 2. Is there 2 apprentices, alumni? Mary is an alum of our apprenticeship program, the next speaker. And Julie, who's right there in the third to last row, both completed the apprenticeship program. And I think that's what they would probably say, is that the network of people that you meet is as much a reason to do the apprenticeship oh, and hi, Courtney, I didn't see you. And Courtney, too. Is as much a reason to engage in this kind of program, because it's really a community builder. But then we are not shy, we don't shy away from going into, how to do things in the most effective, profitable, efficient way possible. We've, as a farm, come a long way, and this is our 10th season. And last year, I'm proud to say that we grossed $100,000 on 1 acre of outdoor production. So that is, 17,000 of that was given away to either apprentices, staff, or community members. And then the 84,000 we actually had in cash sales via farmers markets and wholesale. And so we are very focused on actually maximizing our production of high value crops. And as I mentioned, our apprentices take home a share of the harvest, and our staff as well. So when we talk about new farmer training, we're not just talking about adults. We're talking about having more young people understand that there even is the career opportunity of agriculture. A lot of young people don't want to get dirty these days, and it's really a mental shift for a lot of them to actually, you can literally see the change in their demeanor when they first come onto the farm, and there's just so much energy because, you're used to being bottled up inside in a classroom, and then people come out to the farm and they just start to, their pace starts to adopt a little bit more of nature's pace. They're pretty wound up, I guess, actually, after just 1 hour. It would actually, the pacing we see happen more with the high school students once they're there for a few hours. All right, and then speaking of high school students, our junior farm crew. So this is, gosh, I guess it was in 2014, the summer of 2014, I think we started our junior farm crew, which is a summer jobs program for area high school students. So that's James in the foreground on the right. He was actually a graduate of our apprenticeship program, and he has been leading our crew these last few years, as well as some years we've had Tiffany, who also was a graduate of the apprenticeship program. But this is, for many of them, their first paycheck that they'll have ever earned for themselves, and we're really pleased that it's on a farm. That's often what draws them there, is just the opportunity to have a job. And then I'm amazed at how many of them literally say they want to start a farm. Many of them specifically say they want to start a restaurant where they grow their own food for the restaurant, which I think is really cool, and also shows where they're at a little bit more in the food system, of seeing okay, well, I want to actually be on the food preparation side a little bit more. So we have lots and lots of field trips that come out to the farm. And in fact, that's your notes. What's that? Oh, doesn't it look so nice and dark? Yeah, I love it. We have really good chocolate cake soil. It's, so last year we had 1,891 students come out to the farm on field trips over the course of the year. And 1,989 come out, youth participating in our programs. Also there's school visits, which sometimes Google Docs doesn't like to match with PowerPoint, so we'll just go to the next one. So this was a cool thing that happened last year, really after it got off the ground a few seasons prior, thanks to Oasis. I don't know if anyone's heard of Oasis. It's a nonprofit that helps keep seniors stay active, and through volunteering and through continuing education. Well, they asked us to be a site where the seniors could actually be teaching young people about catching healthy habits. And so unfortunately last year that grant that ran out for them, and they weren't able to continue their programming. And we had a very industrious AmeriCorps volunteer who decided she thought that intergenerational learning was still really important, which we agreed. And so she actually still was able to pair a lot of senior volunteers in the community with a local summer camp, strength and honor mentoring and tutoring, to come out to the farm every week for a day of their summer camp. It was an 8-week program, and they came out once a week to try our fresh produce and learn in the garden together. And then, of course, there's lots of volunteer opportunities for young people. We have a once-a-month time when we actually have high school students that need service hours come out to the farm. And then community engagement. So this is actually a picture from last summer's 4th of July festival in January Wabash Park, a long-standing Ferguson tradition. And I don't know if Crystal's in the room, but one of our team members came up with the idea that we could actually design a mural on the side of a Metro bus. This is a regular program operating in St. Louis, where it's basically arts in transit. And so she designed a beautiful mural that showed the vegetables on one side and the Ferguson Farmers Market on the other side. And then it was a paint by number thing, and we had people in the community actually help us paint it at the 4th of July festival. And the other thing I guess I would say about community engagement is that a few years ago, the USDA awarded us with a community food assessment grant. And so we actually engaged our young people, our junior farm crew members, to go out into the community with us and survey residents about what their food needs are, as well as what our assets are in Ferguson. So we learned a lot about our community. I say our because I also live in Ferguson. And we are taking that information now, and this past season have taken it back out into the community and shared, hey, this is the results of what we learned. Which of these things resonate with you? What do you think we should work on next? And so it's really great to be hearing things directly from our own community members about where they want EarthDance to apply its energy next. And so one of the things that we've been hearing a lot of is, we want EarthDance in the schools, not just out, hosting students at the farm. So that'll be an area that we're gonna try to grow in next. Volunteer opportunities, pretty self-explanatory. Community food assessment I mentioned, that picture didn't show up. We've had, for the last, I guess last year was the first year, but feels like we've been doing it a long time. This year we'll have these free classes and workshops all day. There's a 2-day big Earth Day festival in St. Louis in Forest Park. It's a really great event. And so we offer free classes on the hour, every hour, on organic farming and gardening. We have a lot of on-farm events as well. This picture is taken from one of our potlucks. One of our upcoming on-farm events is actually partnering with a local band and doing it as awareness raising of current issues in agriculture while we're also talking about the Farm Bill, because not everybody wants to talk about policy. So you won't necessarily get people out to the farm to have a 30-minute talk on the 2018 Farm Bill, but if you hook them there with a farm dinner and concert, then we can actually talk about the issues while they're there. Oh, it's a bummer so many of the pictures didn't show up. Well, the farm tours are something we've really invested in a lot more this last year. We actually offered free trolley rides to go pick people up from the Ferguson Farmers Market, which is just a mile from our farm, and bring them out to our farm and get people there and back for free. So that's been really popular. Is it time? Yep, you're good. No, you've got 5 more minutes. Oh, okay. Anyways, this is, ways you can support EarthDance if you're interested, but I'm sure that there's, I'm sure a lot of you have organizations. Our 20% of our annual revenue each year comes from a big fundraiser that is a lot of fun called Farmers Formal. If any of you are in St. Louis in October, we'd love for you to come out. Our attire is farm festive overalls optional. So instead of black tie optional, yeah, people have really a lot of fun with it. It's we'll just end it on that one.